नित यूं चर्चा सुनत है, मिलके दो भ्रात, दो प्रेम में भीगे रहे, करे मूल निस्बत विख्यात, करे मूल निस्बत विख्यात। नित यूं चर्चा सुनत है। बोलिए श्री धाम की धनी की जय। On yesterday's discourse, we talked about the eternal union between Sundarbai and Indravati, the divine consorts of Sri Rasyamaji, the leading consorts Sundarbai and Indravati. As we all know that Sundarbai has the spirit of Syamaji in her, and Indravati has the spirit of Raji in her. So the meeting of Devchandraji Maharaj, Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj and Prananath, will know by the name of Maharaj Thakur, is a divine one, because it was expected that this meeting would set a course of awakening, 12,000 souls lost in this forgetful world, in the world full of suffering. As it happened, we talked about yesterday that a Muslim widow was awakened by Satguru Sri Devchandraji, and he asked Maharaj Thakur Prananath to look into other scriptures as well, as reference to the arrival of the Brahma Srishtis, the people of spirit, the moment into this world to liberate the souls of the world. We talked about the message of interfaith harmony in the teachings of Mahamati Prananath as well a little bit yesterday, because the knowledge embedded in Tartam, the Brahma Gyan, is for all. It is for all to savor. It is for all to get the glory of. So Mahamati Prananath will also learn about the valuable teachings that are found in Abrahamic scriptures as well, and promotes the concept of universal religion. He is actually the one who says that all the scriptures in this world are sent by the divine, and it is expected that there will be some distinctions, yet the underlying theme of all the scriptures is basically the same. They all want humanity to realize the true potential of their soul. So we'll talk about that concept in detail and the comparative analysis of Vedic and Abrahamic scriptures that Mahamati Prananath proposes and offers to humanity. So Maharaj Thakur, Prananath and his brother Govardhan Thakur begin to go to the discourse of Satguru Sri Devchandraji. Mahamati Prananath says, "Do nate ki baat," there are two relationships in between Maharaj Thakur and Govardhan Thakur. They are brothers in this world, in their material existence, and they are the divine consorts of Paramnam. Kunamanti Bai and Indravati Bai of Paramnam. So there are two relationships. And they go to the discourse every single day to Satguru's place. If you have ever been to Jamnagar, the place where Mahamati Swami Sri Prananath and his brother, or Mahamati Prananath's home and Nautanpuri Dham, are not too far away. Few minutes of walking distance. So they go to the discourse of Satguru every day. Do prema mein bhige rahe, and the discourse of Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj really gets their attention. They truly savor the teachings of Devchandraji Maharaj, the discourse on Braja, the discourse on Ras, the discourse on the roles and responsibilities of these souls, the promises they made in Paramdham, and all these concepts that Devchandraji Maharaj, Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj describes to the participants, make Indravati and Gunavanti Bai, Prananaji and Govardhan Thakur realize that they are among the most fortunate souls in this world, because they are exposed to this transcendent understanding. They are realizing their souls, they are realizing their true potential, they are realizing their true identity. So they begin to go to the discourse every day. Whatever they are taught, whatever they are explained in the discourse, they embrace such teachings in their hearts. And as soon as the discourse of Satguru Sri Devchandraji is over, they return to their home. Because they go to the discourse every day and they are not interested in their worldly pursuits. Some of their family members are not happy. Samalji, one of the ministers of Jam King, is not specifically, he is not happy because his brothers go to temple every day, Nautan Paridham, every day and listen to the discourse. He makes money, he feeds the family, he is the breadwinner, but his brothers are just not interested in doing anything. In his own words, they are spoiled, they are useless, they are directionless, because they do not work, they do not think about their future, they do not care about what future holds for them. They do not care about how difficult the life is going to be without any direction. For a lot of people, spirituality is of less significance. They are only in the pursuit of worldly gains, worldly possessions. They are only after wealth and riches of the world. One day, Samalji, after taking shower, he comes to his brothers, Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur, and begins criticizing them. You've been spoiled, guys. And Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur promptly respond, how are we spoiled? We are in the pursuit of spiritual glory, we are in the pursuit of Brahma, we are in the pursuit of God. And the discourse of Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj gives us all the directions to realize just that, the spiritual glory, self-realization. So how are we spoiled? Maharaj Thakur and Govardhan Thakur ask his brother. And Samalji says, you are spoiled because you do not care about what future holds for you. You do not care about how you're going to survive in the future. Because now I'm making the money. Our father is making the money, and you're just not doing anything. What happens when we stop doing what we are doing? And how would you feed yourself? And it continues to belittle their effort of spiritual understanding. And he says that, I think I should expel your Guruji, Devchandraji and Gangaji Bhai from this town such that you would begin to take life seriously. As soon as they heard about expelling Satguru Sri Devchandraji, their Guruji, they began chasing Samalji to beat him out. Because it is stated in the Vedic scriptures that you should never listen to the criticism of your spiritual leader, of your spiritual master, of your Guruji. And Mom, Dhanabai, comes to the rescue of Samalji. They are not in good terms. As soon as father comes to the home, Kesav Thakur, then she tells all the story about what happened today, the fight between brothers, Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur versus the elder brother Syamalji. And Kesav Thakur finds a middle ground to solve the issue. He tells Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur that, okay, you do not have to go to Satguru's discourse every day. You can go rather to the discourse of Kanjivatta, because it is with whom Satguru got the spiritual teachings. If you go to Kanjivatta, that would be fine. And Maharaj Thakur and Govardhan Thakur promptly agreed, yeah, that's fine, we can go to the discourse of Kanjivatta, but we have a condition. If Kanjivatta can answer our questions, we do not mind going to his discourse instead of going to the discourse of Sadguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj. Kesav Thakur agrees to that condition, and he himself takes his two sons, Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur, to Kanjivatta. As soon as they get to the Syamji's Mandir, the temple of Sri Krishna, where Kanjivatta gives the discourse on Bhagavata, Kesav Thakur asked Kanjivatta if he could respond to, if he could answer the questions that his kids have. Kanjivatta is confident, he is assured that he will have the answers to their questions. So Devchandraji's disciples, Maharaj Thakur and Govardhan Thakur, go to Kanjivatta for the first time and ask the questions, begin asking these questions. They ask, Vattaji, can you please tell us how many gunas are there? How many universal properties are there? For that, Gangaji Vai says, there are only 3 gunas, there are not more than 3 gunas. These gunas are universal properties. In Vedic terms, they are called Sata, Raja, and Tama. Satagun is associated with harmony, compassion, truth, love, and sacrifice. It reflects the positivity in life. And those people who have Satagun predominantly, it makes their thoughts more purified, actions more justified, and reactions more dignified. So that is Satagun. There is another one that is called Rajagun. It is associated with passion, adventure, desire, materialism. And those people who are predominantly Rajoguni are highly energetic, they are driven, they are passionate, and they are the risk takers. There is the third guna called Tamogun. It is associated with ignorance, lethargy, selfishness, dishonesty, disloyalty, among others. So these are the 3 gunas. There are no more than 3 gunas, says Kanjivatta. And then Govardhan Thakur and Indravati, Maharaj Thakur, asked the other question. So you say there are only 3 gunas. Can you tell us how many elements are there that the world consists of? And Kanjivatta promptly says, there are only 5 elements. Panchama tattva te chhattha tattva nahi. He says there are not more than 5 elements. And these 5 elements are the earth, water, fire, wind, and the space. The Prithvi tattva, Jala tattva, Agni tattva, Vayu tattva, and Akash tattva. So the world is made up of these 5 elements, so is our body. So as our body is built, so is the universe, says the Vedic scriptures. Yatha pinde, tatha brahmande. So these are 5 elements. There are not more than 5 elements. The next question that Viraj Thakur and Govardhan Thakur collectively asked is how many planes are there in this world? How many lokas are there in this world? For that he says there are not more than 14 lokas that we know by the term of Chauda Lok. Quran gives the reference of that as Chaude Tavak. So Vedic and Abrahamic scriptures come together in saying that there are only 14 planes of this world. And he says that there are 7 heavenly places, heavenly planes, and there are 7 ethereal worlds that known as the lowly worlds. So the 7 heavenly places are Mrityulok, the earth, the Lok, the land of karma. The place that we are all in right now is Mrityulok. Going upwards, the other one is Pitrilok, where our ancestors go to. The other one is Swargalok. In English translation, you would translate to heaven, where God Indra resides with angels, Swargalok. And those who are virtuous in their actions, we have more merits than sins, go to heaven, this heaven, Swargalok, when they die. And so long as they have the merits, they are allowed to stay there. As Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, a lot of people consider this heaven as the place of salvation or the place of moksha, but he says, Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam chhine punyam artilokam vishanti. So long as you have the merits, you can stay and enjoy the fruits of this heaven, but as soon as the merits are over, you come to this world and reincarnate in different lives. And it is believed in Vedic scriptures that there are more than 84 lakhs or 8.4 million lives that you reincarnate into every life. Until with your spiritual understanding, you find Lord Sri Krishna, the Lord Supreme, and your soul is eternally liberated. So that is Swargalok. The other one is Maharlok, where Dharmaraj resides. Dharmaraj is the one who keeps the track of our virtuous actions versus our sins. He keeps the record of that. He writes everything that we do, and he determines whether the soul, upon departing the body, makes it to heaven or hell. So that is Maharlok. He is also known as Yamaraj or Dharmaraj, who resides in Maharlok. The above one, beyond Maharlok, is Janalok, where 4 sons of Lord Brahmaji, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan, and Sanat Kumar reside. They are the pillars of Dharma. They are the pillars of righteousness, because of whom the world survives the overwhelming sins, overwhelming vices of this Yuga, Kali Yuga, the iron is. The one above it is Tapalok, where the ascetics get liberation, albeit temporarily. It is not a place of eternal salvation. And beyond Tapalok is Satalok, where the leaders of these 14 planes, Lord Brahmaji, Lord Vishnuji, and Lord Shivaji, Lord Mahesa reside. It is a place of this Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. Now coming to the 7 ethereal worlds, there are Atal, Bital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, and Patal. And the last one, going downward, is Patal, which is hell. And there are believed to be 84 of them. And only the description of 28 hells are found in Bhagavad Mahapurana and other Vedic scriptures. So these are the 14 planes of this world, or 14 planes of the universe. And Kanji Bhatta says, There are no more than 14. These are the only 14 planes of this universe. The next question that Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur ask is, how many types of dissolutions are there? How many types of pralay are there? And he says there are 4 types of dissolutions. One is the Nitya Pralay. Nitya Pralay is the dissolution or destruction that happens every day. People die and people come to this world. This is a regular occurrence, and that is Nitya Pralay. The next one is Naimittik Pralay, and this dissolution happens when Brahmaji's 12 hours are passed, and during this time, when Brahmaji goes to sleep, he stops creating, and 10 of the 14 lokas are dissolved. The 7 ethereal worlds, the world that we live in, Ritulok, that's the 8th, Pitrilok, where our ancestors live, and Swargalok, the heaven, are all dissolved in this pralay, in this dissolution. And the third one is Prakritik Pralay. It is the end of Brahmaji's life. According to the Vedic scriptures, Brahmaji lives for 100 years. And we already talked about it. Brahmaji's 1 day or 12 hours is equivalent to 4.32 billion years in this world. So calculate 100 years. That is hundreds of till trillions of years. So it can even be complicated to calculate that. So at the end of Brahmaji's life, Lord Narayana's attachment to his creation end, that is called the Moha Tattva. So Brahmaji, the Lord Mahesha, Lord Vishnu, the Ashtabaran, Gayatri, and all these divine beings are dissolved in that Prakritik Pralay, the third dissolution. And the final one is the Atyantik Mahapralay. It is when Akshara is awakened, when the souls are liberated through their spiritual understanding. That is Atyantik Mahapralay. So there are 4 types of dissolution, 14 planes, 5 elements, and 3 gunas. So they got that confirmation from Bhattaji. Now, Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur asked the question. So what happens during the final dissolution, during that Atyantik Mahapralay? Where does the Lord Supreme reside? Bhattaji, you just said that there are 14 lokas. There are not more than 14 lokas. So please tell us, where does Lord reside? Because you said in the Prakritik Pralay alone, the 14 lokas are gone, they are dissolved. You said there are no more than 5 elements. So where does Lord reside? Tava bhatta ki sudabudha gai kahe e jawab Brahma Shena hue. And then Bhattaji became silent. He said, after a while, even Brahmaji, the preceptor of 4 Vedas, may not have answer to this question. Dear Sundar Saji, if we look at the Vedic scriptures, predominantly the Vedas, the Upanishads, they all talk about these 14 planes. They talk Vaikuntha, the residence, Satalok, the Vaikuntha of Lord Vishnu as the eternal place of liberation. All the Krishna Bhakti traditions, the Radhe Radhe movement, the Vaishnava traditions that believe Krishna is the Lord Supreme, they believe that Vaikuntha is the place of eternal salvation. But truth of the matter is, when Prakritik Pralaya even happens, all these places, all these divine beings are dissolved. They do not exist any longer. So Bhattaji could not even respond to the simple question, where does God reside at times of Mahapralaya? Bhattaji cannot answer that question. And Kesav Thakur realizes that, okay, he says, Govardhan Thakur, Maharaj Thakur, I won't stop you from going to Satguru's discourse any longer. Because Kanji Bhatta does not have answer to your question, and you must have found the answers to these questions from Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj. So you are free to do whatever you please. You can go to Satguru's discourse from tomorrow. Dear Sundarsaji, the knowledge embedded in Tatham has answers to all the questions that humanity may have in regards to human existence, evolution, creation, and what existed beyond, before the creation even happened. The Lord Supreme is beyond time and space, and that is explained very beautifully in the teachings of Mahamati Sri Prananath. All the Vedic scriptures have some references to the eternal abode of the Lord Supreme, yet many are confused about what it really is. A lot of the Vedic followers, a lot of Hindus believe heaven is the eternal place of salvation. But Sri Krishna flat out denies that in Bhagavad Gita, and there are many references that we find in the Vedic scriptures which state that heaven is but temporary. Heaven is a place to enjoy the merits that we earn with our virtuous actions in this world, but it is not the eternal place of salvation. Even Vaikuntha, Satalok, where Lord Brahmaji, Lord Shivaji, and Lord Vishnu reside, is not the place of eternal salvation, because in Prakritik Pralaya, in that Prakritik dissolution, these lokas are all dissolved. However, I would say more than 90% of the Hindus, or I would even raise that percentage to even higher one, they believe that Vaikuntha or Sataloka is the place of eternal salvation, which is declined by the Vedic scriptures themselves. We do not even need to come to Tartam to believe that Vaikuntha is not the place of eternal salvation. There are more higher lokas than Vaikuntha. If we go further higher, we can say beyond Vaikuntha is the Astavaran, beyond Astavaran is Jyoti Swarup's abode. If we go beyond that, we have the abode of Gayatri. Om Bhargava Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. As people recite the mantra, Gayatri mantra, that is the abode of Gayatri. And beyond that is Mohatattva, beyond that is Ichchashakti, beyond that is the abode of Narayana, and beyond Narayana is the Panchami Char Samasti, the cosmic dream. That is what many believe, the Vedantists. The Advaita Vedanta and all the Vedantists believe that Lord Supreme is Nirakar, is without form. They have reached that Brahma cannot be a form. Brahma cannot be Sakar. Brahma should be Nirakar, and he takes form whenever it's needed. So Vedanta talks about the Nirakar Brahma, the Brahma without form, because he cannot be in form like we are. But if we look at Bible, God created man in the image and likeness of him. Dear Sundarsaji, nobody has ever reached beyond that layer of dream to realize what exists in reality. Nobody has reached beyond the cosmic dream to the imperishable Brahma, to the abode of Akshara. And beyond Akshara is the Lord Supreme. So, Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur are enlightened by the eternal understanding. They have realized, they have found the eternal abode of Paramdham. How could they be convinced by the teachings of heaven and Vaikuntha? So, Bhattaji could not answer. Tartama jnana hatha karadino chira nira ko nirnay kine. That's why we say the knowledge of Tartam distinguishes between the imperishable and the perishable. The Chara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and the Aksharatit Purusha, the Lord Supreme. Dear Sundar Sachi, that is why the saints of the past say, Sarva Dharma ko choda kara eka dharma graheshara Krishna Pranami Dharma me Sarva Dharma vistara. The teachings of all the Vedic and Abrahamic scriptures can be found. The essence, the deepest underlying message of all the scriptures can be found in Tartam. And once you embrace Tartam, you are revealed with the transcendent understanding. Dear Sundar Shaji, both of these brothers continue to go to the discourse of Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj. And whatever they learn, they try to share that understanding to other people. But it so happened that after 13 years of continuously going to Satguru's discourse, two brothers, Maharaj Thakur and Govardhan Thakur, in the year 1700, Govardhan Thakur suddenly passed away in the year 1700. He passed away, and that shook Maharaj Thakur Prananath. It hit him really bad, and he became detached from this world. He realized the transience of this world. Oh, it may happen to me one day as well. I may have to leave the world as well. Satguru Sri Devchandraji Maharaj has realized the eternal glory of Paramdham. He has the vision of Paramdham. He can see Paramdham. He can experience Paramdham. He can experience the divine glory of Lord Supreme in him. But I just know I have not experienced that. What if I never realize it in this life? So a feeling of vairagya, a feeling of renunciation comes in the mind of Maharaj Thakur Prananath. 13 वर्ष माया मिने था ऊपर अलौकिक बोझ श्रीराज तरफ रहत है रमे बीच कौशर house. For 13 years, from 1687 to 1700 in the Hindu calendar, for 13 years, Govardhan Thakur and Maharaj Thakur go to the discourse of Satguru Sri Devchandraji. But they go from their homes. They have their own responsibilities at home. That's why Mahamati Laldasi says, 13 varasha maya mine. They were within that realm of Maya. They had not left their homes. They had not renounced anything of the world. Tha upar alaukik boj. They had some worldly responsibilities to fulfill. But their minds and their hearts were always with Satguru. Their minds and hearts were always with Raji Maharaj, the Lord Supreme. And all the discussions of Paramdham would excite their soul, energize, rejuvenate their souls. Dear Sundar Saji, Prananath realized the transience of this world. He realized what Satguru had been talking about all along. The world is nothing but a dream. Let me give you a little story. Let me tell you a short story about it. A couple were awaiting for their first child. They were trying to have a baby for a long time. And finally, after years of their attempt, a child is born. A son was born to the couple. They were really excited that they finally had a child who would take care of them in their old age. In Vedic scriptures, they believe that they have to have a child for the soul to reach the heavens. So they were really happy. Now, they were not financially well off. They had a small piece of land. So the father would go to the field pretty much every day and then plant some grains and all that to feed the family. And one day, while he was in the farm, a kid from his village comes running towards him and tells him, Uncle, your son is not well. Your wife asked me to call you to your home. Can you please come really fast? Your son is not really doing well. So he stops doing what he was doing and promptly runs to his home. His son was really sick. He didn't know what to do. He called the Vaidya, the traditional doctor available in the village, but he could not save him. I'm sorry, I could not save your son, says the doctor. He becomes really sad. His wife is unconscious. She cries and cries and cries and cries and cries because only one son that they had, that they could live for, is no longer with them. She is really, really sad. She cries. He's consoling her, although he is equally upset. So she does not eat for days. And one day, probably a few days later, she still doesn't want to do anything. She still doesn't want to eat. He's trying to console her to accept the fate. And she cries to his shoulder. And after midnight, they go to sleep. And early in the morning, he goes to the farm again after a few days after the passing of his only son. And he is not that happy. He's not in a good mood to work in the farm. However, those living would have to eat something. He has to feed his wife. So he has to go to the farm. So as soon as he returns after a long day of work at the farm, she begins charging at him. She begins to scream at him. She says, "Why did you have to go to the farm? Who are you? Why are you working in the field when you do not have to, like your only son is gone? You do not have to work in the farm. Like you don't have to work for anybody now because one that we would live for is no longer with us, our only son. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to go to the farm. At least not for a few days when we are bereaving the loss of our son." Then her husband, calmly consoles her and says, "My beloved wife, when I went to sleep last night, I had a dream. In that dream, I was an emperor. I was a king whose name was sung all around. People of all different towns and cities would fear and sing my glory. I had 7 sons, mighty ones. They would win over the lands, vast masses of lands, and our kingdom was so wealthy, so doing well, so renowned around the world that he won't believe it. As soon as I woke up this morning, I lost my kingdom. I had lost my 7 sons, all the wealth I had. I lost everything that I had. Now the husband asked the wife, should I cry for the only one son that we had? Or should I cry for the 7 mighty sons I had? The kingdom, the name, the prestige, the recognition, the fame that I had as the king of that kingdom. Because the world is but a longer dream, but it is a dream, dear Sundarsads. Prananath realized that the world is but a dream, that one day he has to live just like his brother. But if he cannot realize the Brahma, if he cannot realize his eternal presence in Paramdham, if he cannot experience that divine blessings, divine bliss in this world, how good it is to know that he is the consort of Sri Radha. That feeling bring him to realization that the world is of no use. Then the feeling of renunciation overwhelms Prananath. He begins to gradually detach himself from the world because the world is of no use. The world is of no value because everything one day we have to leave behind. The people that we call ours, either they would leave us or we would leave them. The uncertainty is always there. Whether today is my last day, I would survive another 50 years, is the question only God has answers to. Isn't that the reality? The transience, the uncertainties of our material existence is something that everyone knows, everyone's familiar with. So Indravati Sakhi, Prananath realizes that it is time for a deeper, stronger, passionate spiritual undertaking that's needed. So he begins to gradually move away from materialism. He begins to gradually drift away from this world. So he begins to ask these questions to himself. Satguru says to Nirmala Atma Dhamaki Indravati Utpanna, you are the divine consort of Sri Radha named Indravati. So the question comes to his mind, if I'm Indravati, if I'm the consort of the Lord Supreme Sri Radha Maharaj, why can't I see the Lord Supreme? Why can't I have the divine experience that Satguru finds himself in? Satguru sees Paramdham, Satguru experiences the divine bliss, then why can't I? It must be something within me. It must be because of my deficiencies. It must be due to my weaknesses. It must be because I'm not engaged in spiritual pursuits as strongly as Satguru is. He begins to self-reflect. He begins to look at his weaknesses. He looks for ways to purify his thoughts such that he can experience the presence of Sri Radha Maharaj in his life. It is easier to find somebody's weaknesses. It's so easy. We can quickly see that. Oh, he does not have humility. Oh, he is not a person of integrity. Oh, he is not honest. Oh, he is thin-skinned. Oh, he is not a good person. It is so easy to point out others' weaknesses. But when it comes to us, we do not see that. We do not see our weaknesses. And when somebody points that out, we do not feel good about it. We become his or her enemy. Because who the hell is he to talk about my weaknesses? Go look into the mirror yourself. You do not have the integrity, you are not truthful, you are not honest, you're not hardworking. We, instead of accepting that as a constructive criticism, what we do is that we point out his or her mistake. But here, Prananath is trying to find his weaknesses himself, because he knows that the world is but a dream. And once this dream is over, it is all gone, it is all over. So he wants to experience that divine bliss within this life. That is what Mahamati Prananath actually preaches. Itahi baithe ghara jagye dha, purana manurata hoy shabakam. Staying in this world, staying in this material body, having this material existence, you should realize the divine. Only then all of your desires are fulfilled. A lot of religious traditions talk about heaven and salvation after death. You won't get to heaven until you are dead. You cannot get to Arsha Azim. You cannot get to the abode of Allah until you are dead. In the Vedic scriptures too, you cannot make it to Swarga, you cannot make it to Vaikuntha until you are dead. But Mahamati Prananath is different in regards to that realization. He says that you should be awakened from within this material existence of yours. You should experience Param Dham in this life, in this body, in this existence of yours. So he is looking for ways to find weaknesses, and he detaches himself from the world gradually. Utarate ahara gataya rahya paishe bharadoi bala gata indriyanaka sukha chala akarashon. What he begins to do is he begins to eat less. He begins to eat very little just to sustain his life. He submits to the will of the Lord Supreme. He becomes weak and frail, yet he continuously looks for ways to find his weaknesses. तब घर के भूषण कोई रया स्त्री के पास सोभी चित्त में अवगुण आया दिल में खास. He feels that it is probably because of the things that he has at home, the ornaments, the jewelry. It can be anything. So all the jewelry he has, he takes it to Satguru and donates it to Nautanpuri Dham. He goes to the market, and whenever his friends are coming towards him, he walks away from them because he does not want to talk to his friends. For the matter that whenever we meet our friends, what do we talk about? We do not talk about the pleas of our souls. We do not talk about the glory of Param Dham. What we talk about is, hey, what's up, man? How are you doing? How is your business? How is your job? Is your wife doing okay? Is your husband doing okay? How are your kids? How many kids do you have? And all these material things that we talk about, that is not conditioned to our spiritual pursuit. So Mahamati Prananaji totally distanced himself from the world in the pursuit of the divine, in the pursuit of that realization of the Brahma within him. He has a wife named Fulbai, a pure soul, always in the service of Sundar Sat. And all those jewelry of his wife are given to Devchandraji Maharaj, donated to Nautanpuri Dham. He becomes weak. He wants to talk about Paramdham and its glory. He's getting deeper into the spiritual pursuit. He's missing his brother, who he went with to Satguru's Discourse for 13 years. Dear Sundar Shaji, the feeling of renunciation, vairagya, that Mahamati Prananaji feels, he becomes weak. The life is short. The life is short. And we do not know in what circumstance it ends, where it ends, when it ends. Until we make a full use of this life, we do not know what future holds for us. We do not know whether we get a similar life in the future. Until we realize the Brahma in this life alone, the life is wasted. It does not mean that we gotta recite the name, we gotta sing the glory of Sri Raji Maharaj all the time, all the time, all the time. That would be nice, but we have some karmas that we need to perform. We need to feed ourselves. We need to feed. We need to take care of our families. But in our thoughts, we can always have Raji Maharaj, we can always have Paramdham in our thoughts, in our chitta. We can always have Raji Maharaj in that. But until we become old and weak, we do not care for the pleas of our soul. My brother used to tell me that he doesn't care about spirituality right now because that is done at the old age. He said he would go to the pilgrimage when he turned 65, but does he know that he would live out until he turned 65? And how good it is that you get to that pilgrimage at the age of 65 when he cannot even walk properly. He needs the help of his son and needs the help of someone to take him to the pilgrimage. He is actually causing other people trouble in the name of getting closer to God. How good it is. When we're strong, when our body is with us, when we can do everything on our own, why don't we realize Brahma? Because we can experience the glory of awakening for a longer time. Let me tell you another story and I'll conclude my remarks with that. In the ancient country of Kasi, there was a tradition that the king would be selected differently than any other places in the world. Anyone who wanted to become a king could become a king. It was not based on heredity. It was not the son of the king who could become a king, but anyone wishing to be a king would be a king. But it would come with a string. It would come with a condition that the king would be the king only for 5 years. He could rule the kingdom only for 5 years. After that, he would be chained, he would be handcuffed, and ferried across the river to a dense forest. And there he would be left all alone amidst the venomous snakes in the wild beasts like tigers and lions, and the fate would be disastrous. So with that in mind, only few would dare to be the king, because there's a glory of being the king for 5 years. All the people in service, the military, all the wealth. So quite a few people would be interested in being the king. But what the impending future holds for them stops them from choosing to become the king. So those kings in the past, after 4 years, they would start thinking about what's coming up in a year. They begin to lose their appetite in their sleep, and by the time the 5-year completes, they would be handcuffed and ferried across the forest, and they would be half dead before the last day itself. So this guy that completed 5 years of ruling that kingdom is being handcuffed, is being kept on the boat and ferried across the river. He tells the sailor of the boat, "Hey, today is the last day of my reign. Why am I handcuffed? I'm still your king. You do not have to handcuff me. I'm not gonna run away, just unlock this," he says. The sailor was initially hesitant, because what if he runs away? But he says, "You do not have to worry about it, I promise you." Then he removes the shackles, he removes his handcuffs. And seeing the smile in the face of that king, the last day, the sailor is surprised, because all the kings in the past, they would be nervous about their impending future. They would be dead, they would be killed by the wild beast. They knew that their life would end in a tragic fashion. But this king, on his last day, it's all smiling, it's all joyful, all jovial. The sailor asked, "You know what tomorrow brings to you, right? You know what's in the other side of this river, right? You know the dense forest. You know about the wild beasts, tigers, lions, hungry lions. You know the venomous snakes and reptiles. You know what future holds for you, right? I'm surprised. You are still confident, you are still happy. You do not seem to have any feeling of fear in your mind. I'm just wondering, what's going through your mind?" says the sailor. The king smiles and tells him, "There is nothing for me to worry about. There is nothing for me to worry about. I'm not worried about what future holds for me, because my future is secured." "Secured?" says the sailor. "How is it secured?" "Because probably by the end of the night, you'd no longer survive. How is your future secure?" The king, in the last day of his reign, in that sheep, says to the sailor, "When I decided to become the king, I knew that all along, that I only have 5 years to rule this kingdom. So I knew that from the beginning. So I made a plan. In these 5 years, I can set the course of my life. I can set the course of my destiny. So what I decided to do, on the first year, I sent the soldiers of my kingdom to kill all the wild beasts and venomous snakes. So I do not have to fear that. On the second year, I cut down all the trees and bushes across that river on that forest. And the third year, because I had all the resources, I had the army, I had all the other resources because I was the king in this country that I'm leaving behind. On the third year, I built roads and all the buildings needed to establish a new kingdom. On the fourth year, I sent the most trusted confidants, most trusted employees of this kingdom to that place. And here I am in this fifth year, on the final day of my temporary reign, 5 years ruling of this kingdom. I'm being welcomed as a king in the new, more prosperous kingdom for my life. I'm the king so long as I live in this new kingdom. What is there for me to worry about? All the kings in the past were so busy, would be so busy in enjoying the royalties, the services of the maids, would be so busy in their material comfort. But I was looking for the future. I was looking for eternalizing the position of a king. I wanted to be a king for a longer term. Dear Sundarsaji, dear listeners, if we do not pursue the plea of our spirit, of our soul, if we do not listen to the plea of our soul, what happens when the call comes from the God of death that, hey, this is over? If you go to the villages today, when the person is near death, he is taken to the courtyard and he is asked to recite the name of God. Everybody starts praying. The man that is on the deathbed asks his family members to donate cows and all the different things to people so that he can earn some merits to get to heaven, not knowing what future holds. That person starts shivering, that person starts becoming more nervous as the seconds pass by, because he knows all his life he did not care for his soul. He didn't give any time for the pleas of his soul. He didn't give any time for the spiritual pursuit and understanding God. And at the end of his life, he's looking for ways to earn any merits he can, with the hope that he can avoid the torture of the hell. Dear Sundarsaji, that is the reason why Mahamati Prananath is asking us to think beyond our material existence. Listen to the plea of our soul. Understand the glory of the Lord Supreme and His teachings. If we do that, just like this king, we can rule the kingdom of Paramdham. We can be with the Lord forever. We can be experiencing the divine bliss forever. We made our life meaningful in this world, and our future looks even brighter. So, just like this king, if we continue to pursue our spiritual goals, continue to recognize the glory of spiritual pursuit, then there is nothing to fear even when our time in this world comes to an end, because we are going to a better place. We are experiencing much better in the next life than this. For those people For those people, and those people alone, afterlife, life after death, brings so much more than the life itself. Because Mahamati Prananath says, Koina aghaya ina indame chacho data chaudamuta. Nobody is satiated. Nobody is fully content in this world, because the world is nothing but an empty promise that is never fulfilled, and we're never content in this life. So Prananaji, Mera Sakura has realized this truth, and he is in pursuit of God, in the pursuit of eternal realization of his soul and his self. So from 1700 to 1703, for 3 years, he engages in deepest of the penances. He is so much into spiritual pursuit. He is deeper into the state of renunciation that nothing matters to him as much as the understanding of the divine, the realization of the divine, finding himself in Paramdham, recognizing his Paratma in Paramdham, in the meeting of Mul Milap. He doesn't expect anything from this world, dear Sundar Sadji. There is so much to learn from the penance of Satguru and Prananath. That's why we're listening to the discourse. And if we walk on the path that they have showed to us, then our life can become much, much, much more meaningful and much more fruitful. And we begin to experience the divine blessings that is for us to experience, that is for us to realize. With this, I conclude my remarks. And what happens after these 3 years of Prananath's penance is something that we'll discuss on tomorrow's discourse. Thank you all so much for being here, listening to this discourse.